Okay, cool. So we're recording. We're just going to do a real quick overview here with Dante Campbell on um, putting together a CMA for a buyer, just to get a feel of the area, and also just some discussion around, you know, making offers in this market. So I go into Matrix. You can use Georgia MLS as well. If you have Georgia MLS, I strongly suggest you get on there and get the training. I'm not well versed in the Paragon, but I'm starting because I'm starting to like Georgia MLS a little bit more. But I'm very familiar with Matrix is your basic tool for selling inventory for your product that you're engaged in, the commodity homes. So this should be at the top of your priority list, learning how to use Matrix. So I go into Matrix and I'm going to do a search, and I'm going to search a single family. I'm going to do the house you just did. I'm going to do residential attached because it is. I'm starting over here on the left-hand column. Initially, I want to look at active under contract, coming soon, pending, closed. Now, why am I picking all of those statuses? I'm picking all those statuses because I want to get just an idea of what's going on in the area. When I'm going to do comps, I'm doing closed. A lot of agents will include some of this in here for consideration, but in a CMA, I only use closed because that's the only comp is what sold. I mean, this is something that didn't happen. This gives me an idea of what my competition is. This gives me an idea of what price point goes pending, but right now all the price points go pending quickly, but it gives me a little bit of an idea and a feel for the area. But when it comes to getting down to, you know, what's a good price, that's what closed is the only thing that's going to tell you that, because that's what happened. So I come up here to map search and I start out at a half a mile, key in the address. And there it comes up, so I can pick it. I don't want to pick anything up because remember, I'm doing a map search. I like doing a map search. Now, I adjusted how I did CMAs once I took a class with DS Murphy, and jot that down. DS Murphy is an appraisal and inspection company, and they offer classes on appraisals for real estate agents. You know, how to value properties like an appraiser. That is invaluable for you as a real estate agent, because that's the appraisal that's going to matter in the end. So do your CMA with that eye. You know, you want to get an idea of what's going on in the neighborhood, but you also got to keep in mind that there's one guy or gal who's going to come out and do this appraisal that's going to determine how the whole thing goes anyway. So start off with that in mind. So appraisers, they start with the area. They go out 2 miles. If it's a special type of property, they'll go out even more. But I start out with a half a mile just to see what I get. And as you can see right away, I got 7. Well, I'm telling you, having been in real estate for a few years, 7 is not a lot of activity, but I'm only a half a mile out. So if I go up here and I click on map, that will present the results to me on a map. And there's my subject right in the middle. And I like these comps because, as you can see, they're all very close to the subject. And that's important. So now I can pull my circle out. So I've got 7. I want to pull it a little bit more because I just happen to know, and you know this area better than I do, Dante. I know that this is a pretty dense area. There's a lot of homes in that area. Mm-hmm. So that are very similar, built around the same time. I remember when they first built Eagles Landing. So I'm going to pull this out just a little bit more just to see what else I get. I don't want to go too far, because what you'll find out as you do comps is that you can be on this side of the road and homes have a certain value, and you just cross over the road and the value jumps or drops. So
yeah, that's what it seemed to happen. It seemed to happen like that when I was looking.
Yep. So, but I want to pull some anyway, because I just want to get some idea. So now I'm going to go to my results. Now, the reason why I like doing a radius, because if I'm doing a radius, I'm getting the same type of house, the same age of house, probably the same school district, and all those things are important. So rather than me have to keep all that different criteria, if I just start with a radius, I'm going to pick up a good sampling of what I need. So a couple of things. So the, I don't know if you're familiar with how to use this grid, but it's very much like an Excel spreadsheet. I can click at the top and reorder the column. As you can see, I got a lot of pendings. I'm going to click again. No actives. Let me go back to my criteria. Did I pick active? No. Now see, this is important. That means there isn't anything else for sale around that house. That's going to determine some value, right? Don't you think?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I didn't know that. That's nothing that I've ever factored in, like how many houses are selling around the area.
Yeah, well, that just gives you some idea of what the demand is going to be. Now, keep in mind, I'm on Matrix, and I did pop into Georgia MLS Paragon, and there were some actives in this area in Georgia MLS that aren't in FMLS.
Oh, okay.
For the sake of simplicity, I'm using, so depending on the area you're in, you're going to want to jump in between the two, Georgia MLS and MLS. But we're going to go with this. So this tells me there's not a lot going on down there. But what is pending, and here's a 3-2 built the same time as the subject, right? Here, 225. So she went pending at 225, and let me take a look. It kind of looks like that one.
Yep.
Newer roof.
Similar.
Yep. Siding's in good shape.
Is the square footage similar to it?
It's a 3-2. Look, this has got an updated kitchen. I don't think the subject does. Now, we don't know what they're going to sell at, but we know they went pending at 225. This is similar to the subject. Now, how do I find out? If you're in Matrix, see the display type right here?
Yeah.
You can create your own display types, add your own fields. Okay, this script, just like with a spreadsheet. So I have one that's sales price square footage. And that tells me the square footage.
Okay. Yeah, because that's what I was looking at too, mainly to try to assess.
Yeah. And let's see. This one, except for this one, it's 225 is a lot smaller. That's a little bit too much smaller.
Yeah.
So let me go back to agent single line. So that's what I got. But here's what's closed. Another thing I do is, okay, I'm going to order it by price. So we had 225. We had this one that closed at 225. That was a 4-2. Let's look at that one.
So a 4-2 with closer square footage would be a better comp than a 3-2. But the square footage is.
Yes.
Okay.
Because look at this is 21. That means the bedrooms are big.
Yeah.
This is what I learned in the appraisal class, which I kind of like always sensed, but always there was a debate with other agents. Bedrooms don't add value as much as bathrooms, basements, garages.
Okay.
Don't add a lot of value because, just like what you said, it depends on the square footage. You can have 1,700 square feet that's 4 bedrooms. Those are little bedrooms.
Yeah, tiny.
Yeah, yeah. And that matters to a lot of buyers, you know, because you got 4 bedrooms, you're putting a family in there.
Right. And my aunt didn't want the house because it didn't have another bathroom.
Yeah. So this same size, we got the 1 story. This has got all the hardwoods without, which I think is more attractive to a buyer.
Yeah.
It's not updated. That's original cabinets and everything, but we got new flooring everywhere. Bathrooms look fine. Carpet looks fine. But this is 225. That deck is nice in the back.
And the same square footage too.
2,100. Yep. 235, 240. Then if something's listed at 275, then I try to find something in that price range that's sold. And you see, we jumped. We went from 265 to 384.9. So let me go back and look at that 265 because that's close to her value, and that's a 4-2. That's Eagles Landing. Okay, that's 2 stories.
Look at that square footage.
3,000 square feet.
Wow, that's a lot bigger too. Way out of the. the range.
No basement. Let's see. And this was just March. That's close enough.
And so I think, yeah, that was the main thing that made me say, yeah, it's not worth 275.
Yeah, yeah. So see how when you go in there and look and it doesn't take much to see what's going on.
Right.
That's the main thing I wanted you to get.
So I just need to trust my judgment.
Yeah, and if you don't, I highly recommend you find one of DS Murphy classes. You can go onto their website, take one of their understanding values like an appraiser, and because it'll really help you. You can turn the corner and start to feel confident.
Yeah.
Picking, and you're just going to pick a house that's comparable. Now, do I know where the house is going to land in value? No, because who determines the value?
The appraiser.
No.
Oh, the market.
Right, the buyer, the ready, willing, and able buyer that makes an offer and closes the deal. That's how value is determined. And so all we're doing is we're trying to give our buyer and our seller a good starting point. We're just saying, here's what the market's doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, would you have well, I'd let you finish. I guess you're going to get to that.
No. Go ahead with your question.
I was going to say, would you offer 275 with the current conditions, seeing what we saw? How, I mean, that would be seemingly.
I would offer 270 if there was demand and my buyer really wanted the house. Showed them all this data. They would know as well, without me having to tell them, that if there's demand, you're not going to a below asking price offer isn't going to work.
Right.
So I would offer at least the asking price, but based on this data, I would not waive my appraisal contingency.
Right.
Because I do not see how an appraiser can come up with their price.
Okay, so if we feel like the appraiser is going to appraise it 20,000 less than what it is, we're still going to have them offer 275, but don't waive the appraisal fee and have them put in they're willing to only pay 5,000 more than appraisal or something.
Or 2,500.
Okay.
We'll give you a little bit. You know what I'm saying? If there's competition. But on this house, your aunt was good thing she followed her instincts, because I would have walked away from it too.
Yeah.
You know, unless it had everything she wanted. If it had everything she wanted, then we would talk.
Right, and that was the first one we looked at too. So.
Yeah, and being that, so see, that's the down and dirty of a basic CMA. And then once so you're going to go in, you're going to pick the residential attached. We're going to start off with active under cover, pending, closed, because that's going to give me some idea of the neighborhood. Then I'm going to start with a map search, always with a map search, because remember, don't worry about all these little things over here, because doing a map search, you're going to find the same kind of house.
Right.
Unless it's some kind of special thing. Now for my CMA, I'm going to take out all these. And I've got 9 sold. That's a good sampling. 9 sold in 3/4 of a mile. So maybe I'll go out just a little bit more. Maybe we'll go out a full mile so we can say that we looked. Now I got a little more.
And the only reason you would go out 2 miles is if you went out this far and you still weren't really hitting on anything.
Yeah, it's something that was different. Now, I don't like going out this far because now I'm over here in Parkside. Judging by the prices, I'm guessing it's similar to Eagles Landing. And did you see how, I can click on any column and put them in order by that column?
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes it easier to start comparing. So you got to learn how to use this tool. And same thing here. All I got was something at 260. Well, let me order them by price. $265, $278. All right, and this is Eagles Landing. This is a 5.3.
5.
278.
Look at the year built.
Yeah, and 3,200 square feet. Yeah, they're, geez, that's a newer house, but I'm not that, well, see, yeah, newer finish.
That's a weird looking house.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely not worth 275. Keep it, I'll bet you'll see that one sit out there for a little while because the market started to cool a little bit. And so that's my basic. So then once I get all of my comps in an area, then I might go to my sales price by square foot. What's the square footage on my subject?
2110.
Okay, so now I'm going to go through my list. You see how I switched over to my sales price square footage?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a custom display that I made that you'll have to learn how to do on Matrix. Then I'm going to go in and I'm going to click 21 something.
2110. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm just going to go through and I'm going to get rid of the ones that aren't close enough to square footage. I might keep the 1800. I'm going to get rid of this one. Definitely going to get rid of this one, and that one. And I think this one is a little too big, and that one. We'll keep the 25 and the 22 for now. Then I go down here to the option to refine
Mm-hmm.
and discard. So I got all them at my list. So now I got 10 to play with, and I put them in square footage order. I'm going to start looking at this one to see if they're similar. So does this look pretty similar?
Yeah. Let's see what the square footage.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep that one. This doesn't look similar.
Nah, it doesn't.
Yeah. All right, so let me do this. I'm going to check the ones I'm going to delete. Now this wasn't a 2-story, was it?
It had a room that was up the
Like
stairs.
a loft. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep this one for now. I'm going to keep that one.
Yeah, that one looks.
Yeah, that's a lot nicer.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm going to keep that one, but we can't do anything with it because we don't have any pictures. About the same size, 250, 2 stories with a finished basement, 230. So I'm going to keep that one. Yeah, this is a little bit bigger. No basement. Let's keep that one. These are all 2-story. She's a 1-story.
Right. But that doesn't matter a whole lot, I guess.
Well, yes and no. Let's see what we end up with. 2,300. No basement. I'm going to get rid of that one. I don't like the size. 2,500. I'm going to get rid of that one. So now I've narrowed it down some more. Same thing, refine, and I'm going to discard. Now I've got 7. And these are the ones, all right, this is the one I like the best.
Yeah.
You know?
It almost looks exactly like it.
Right. This one I'm going to get rid of for a couple of reasons. One, it's a 2-story, even though it is about the same size.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see the inside.
Okay, so that's a big deal because you want to make sure that it's the same condition.
Yeah, I want to see.
Okay.
But it doesn't really matter because the value is way below. But comparable purposes, I don't want to use it. You know what I mean? Based on the value, it's right in there with, she's definitely too high.
Right. It doesn't add that much any more context.
Yeah, see, this has got a finished basement and the subject does not. So I'm getting rid of this one. Basements are anywhere from 15 to 20 to 25,000 difference in value.
Wow.
no basement here, 2,200 square feet. Yeah, we'll keep that one. It's not going to make much difference. And this is 2,200, no basement. Is that the kitchen?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's still not going to help her. So let me get rid of those last two. So I end up with about 5. And then I would pick all of these and pop them right in a CMA report. And once you get in there, you can do some adjustments, but let's just do a quick CMA.
What's the main difference between those two, quick CMA and CMA?
Well, right here, the quick CMA, it just
Mhm.
puts them on one page for you and gives you some averages.
Okay.
Gives you some idea, minimum, maximum, average, median. Just gives me some idea. So, you know, our average, and I even put houses in there that were bigger and nicer than hers, and I still can't get the average up to up past 250.
Mhm. And that's what you were trying to do if you could?
I'm just trying to get some idea, you know, of where we're at,
Right.
you know. Here's the thing about CMAs, Dante, you can make them say whatever you want to say. You get that, right?
Mm-hmm. They're subjective.
Right. So you got to be comfortable with it, and you will be, and you should be comfortable with what you picked.
Mm-hmm.
Built about the same age home within a 10, give them a 10-year range,
Right.
around the same size. And then you've got to take a look at the area. That's one of the reasons why you want to look at everything first. Start out going out in area because that's what an appraiser does.
Mm-hmm. And then
So,
they just narrow it down from there like you did.
Right. And if you stay within an area radius, as you saw, you'll get your same age, you'll get the same size, and you'll be in the same school district most likely.
Mm.
And that'll make it easier than have to go in and tweak all of those other criteria.
Right.
Okay. Any questions?
No. So you're at the end of the day, what do your opinion on that house's value would be what?
No more than 230.
Oh, wow. And so that situation you would, so you think in your opinion,
230 to 250 maybe.
so you think that's what the appraiser would do, and you would still offer 275, but make sure you keep that appraisal.
Well, make sure I have an appraisal contingency. The only reason I would offer 275 is if there's a lot of competition and my buyer really wants the house.
Right.
Or the buyer should just walk away. When we are able to easily determine that the house is blatantly overpriced,
Mm-hmm.
it's better to just walk away.
Right.
You know, because in this market, you know, you don't want to put in an offer that is that far below. She might get 250 for that just because of demand, but I don't even think it's worth 250.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that house is going to sit on the market for a little bit. Because believe it or not, even though there's a lot of demand right now, there are houses sitting out on the market.
Yeah. I mean, they're overpriced. If they're overpriced, that's what's going to happen.
That's always what's going to happen. It's always a seller's market when you're priced right. So, so does that help with the CMA?
Yeah, it definitely tremendously.
Okay.
Because I knew it was subjective, but I wanted to just see somebody perform it, and you know, just to trust my own, guidance as to what I feel is going to happen.
Right. You got to have a starting point. So your starting point, my starting point is the type of property. Look at everything. Is that map search?
Mm-hmm.
That's my starting point. And then from there, I go out a little bit or I come in a little bit. So I have a good sampling, at least 5. And then I want to pick houses that are as close to the same condition as the subject as possible. The appraiser class will help you to understand some of the adjustments they make, and what they look for.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
try to pick up that appraisal class from them. I think they got one coming up as soon as you can.
Okay. And now would you print that out, or would you just use all that to determine what you determined?
You mean print it out for my client?
Right.
If it were a seller, I'd get real detailed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go into RPR, Realtor Property Resource, and do a real detailed report for them. If it's a buyer, that's pretty much what I'm going to do. And I might do a quick CMA, or I might not give them anything unless.
Yeah. What if somebody comes up to you and wants you to give them an opinion on what a property is worth? Would you just do that quick little CMA for them too?
I would do the quick CMA, or I might do the other CMA. But here's the thing: I would make real clear up front that I tell them that, number one, according to license law, you cannot value a property without an appraiser's license.
Right.
So my answer would be, I don't know the value. The buyer that buys the house determines the value. But I can tell you what's going on in that market, what houses have sold for. So
and then give you my opinion.
Right. So we'll have a starting point. So let me pull the recent sales, and let me pull what's active, so you see what kind of competition is out there. But the value of your home is going to be determined by the buyer that comes and makes an offer.
Okay. So really the main time that you would actually get down and dirty and do a full CMA is when you're servicing a seller.
Correct.
When you're trying to price their house for them and list.
Right.
It. Okay.
And even then, I'm not giving them a value. I'm giving them a starting point. Here's a good price. And agents all the time, there's marketing. There's a standard in real estate marketing. You see it everywhere that says, get a free home value report. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you value.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just common practice, and everybody calls it that. I say, let me give you a free market activity report.
Right.
Going on in the market and what your house might sell for, but I don't set the value.
Now that particular listing agent, so you feel like that the listing agent is probably, in your opinion, doing them a disservice by listing the house at $275?
No, I mean, I've overpriced many a house. I put more than one house on the market overpriced because, but I educate my sellers. I give them a thorough CMA, and I say, listen, I understand why you want to price it here, because I don't want you to leave any money on the table either. And I said, but just understand something. It doesn't matter what kind of market we're in. Buyers are not going to overpay for houses. Well, you can't say that anymore because they've been doing it, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
But they aren't going to make blatantly overpriced offers in an area. So you will know, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, you will know within 10 days or less if your price is good, because you'll get, if your price is good for the buyers that are out there, you're going to get offers. You're going to get a lot of showings as soon as we open the door, always. But showings are not offers. So you can get all kinds of activity, but if that activity doesn't yield an offer, then your price is not right.
That seller told me she had 7 offers already.
Because of demand.
Yeah.
If there were other inventory out there, she wouldn't have a single offer. And she had 7, these properties that are priced right out there are getting 40 offers on the first day.
Sheesh.
That's so funny. When they tell me they got 7, I'm like, ooh, that's all you got?
Yeah, your eyes light up a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding, Dante. There's sellers that are getting 40 offers in the first freaking hour. In the first day. So just the fact that she tells me she only got 7 means, believe it or not, that's not a real hot property. There's buyers out there that still want a house, but most of them are doing like your aunt and they're walking away. They're saying, no, this doesn't have anything. This doesn't have what I want. Doesn't have what I need.
Yeah. Now, do you think that 7 offers is going to yield a close?
Well, it'll definitely yield a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it closes, I don't know. Somebody might be cash. She might wind up closing, for less than the 275.
Yeah.
But Or she might get the 275 because somebody's going to go in with no financing, with no appraisal contingency. But, you know, it won't be me.
Right.
You know,
So
that's,
no, go ahead.
nope, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, I was looking at my notes. Okay, so my aunt and uncle, they're getting a house through a VA loan. Is that going to affect anything that I would need to do and how I would need to move as a realtor?
We'll make sure you are well versed in VA loans. Okay.
Okay.
Google them online. It's not that hard to understand. Call the lender and talk to the lender and tell the lender, hey, look, this is my first VA loan. I wonder if you can fill me in on some of the details and what I can expect.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask those questions. So do that. The VA loan, they don't put any money down. I mean, so that's part of it. Some sellers might be a little wary because of VA repairs. Ask the lender about that. What kind of repairs or things might come back on the appraisal so I know what to look out for? Because everybody always talks about how VA appraisals are real strict and they're picky. I've not had that experience with VA, but then I haven't closed a VA loan in a while. And the real estate market moves quickly. Things shift and change all the time. So ask the lender about that. Let them know, what can I expect on that VA inspection appraisal? The VA calls it an inspection/appraisal. Ask the lender, what can I expect from that? So I know, you know, so I can give a heads up to my buyers.
Okay. And okay. And as far as what can you expect from it, as far as what's going to need to be up to date or what's going to need to be, you know, pretty fixed in order for them to approve the loan?
Correct. You want to know what type of things is the VA calling out right now?
Okay.
And so we don't have any surprises and we can work all of that into our offer.
Okay. And does Joe, do they do VA loans as well?
I'm sure he does. Everybody does. And
Okay.
I'm sure Joe will be more than happy to give you some information on it.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll probably call and talk to him. The woman that they're using said that it might be hard for them to underwrite them through the VA loan.
Why?
Because, well, she said, and I think she's mistaken though, but she said that they have to sell their house first anyway before they can buy the home. But my uncle told me that he qualifies for a loan. He doesn't need to close on this house before he can qualify for another loan. I don't know if it's paid off or mostly paid off or what.
Okay, so you need to find that out. Pull up their home in the tax record and see if you can find out where their mortgage is at. Or just ask him for his mortgage statement.
Okay. And so and then what am I looking for in the mortgage statement exactly?
You just want to see what his payoff is.
Mm-hmm. And so if it's low, then it's likely that he can still qualify for another VA loan.
Yeah, well, it depends on that and his monthly payment. See, that's what the lender's looking at, his debt to income ratio.
Mm-hmm.
They want to see how much his monthly payment is. So just ask him what that is. But yeah, see Joe, see if they're open to being run through Joe. Because you want to make sure, because then you got to get his house on the market.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Do we need to wait for that house to be on the market or not? But she's trying to sell that. Anyway, she's going through some company offer pad.
Okay. Yeah. And are they charging her a lot of fees?
I'm not sure what fees they're charging her. I know they offered her $275 for it.
Yeah.
But I don't know what.
They charge anywhere from 6 to 12%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
I should ask what their commission was.
Yeah. And see, the thing is, if she went in there with you as her agent, you still would have gotten paid. But anyway, So now that's another little homework assignment. You got to look up OfferPad, go on their website and read how they work.
Mm-hmm.
The convenience of that is that they can sell the house quickly because it's a cash buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And they, so remember now, OfferPad's buying it to put it back on the market. So they're not going to pay wholesale. They're not going to pay retail. They're going to pay wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
So what you want to do is find out how OfferPad works, what kind of fees they're charging them. It might be worth it to your aunt and uncle because then they can sell it quickly and get the cash and move on to the next purchase. I think OfferPad will even let them stay in there after the sale for a little bit too,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
would be real convenient for them.
Oh wow. Yeah, because she's concerned about finding a house.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, OfferPad, it's not a bad deal, but it doesn't work for everybody, but you need to do your research because this is where your value is to them as a real estate agent.
Yeah.
It's professional, is guiding them through all that. So you got to have their back. So, so look up OfferPad, get on their website, read all their stuff, whatever they got on there, dig into it, find out how they work and what kind of deal they're getting.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And then I can see their contract too.
Yeah. Just ask them if you can look it over. Did they sign it yet with them, or they're just talking to them?
They signed it already.
Oh, bummer.
Yep, I know. I was.
That's why you got to
upset.
you got to get in front of your sphere because you could have gotten a listing agreement with them, been able to represent them as their agent, and it wouldn't have cost them any more. OfferPad would have given you part of that fee that they're charging them.
Yeah.
But that's all right. Ask them to see it anyway. I mean, they're your family. Say, you just mind if I just look it over? Because I'm trying, they know you're new, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
They
I'm
wouldn't
just
have a
trying to
problem.
understand how OfferPad works.
Okay.
Yeah. So what else you got?
Okay, so if she wanted to write that offer on the house, how would I have gone about just starting to write
It
up?
depends. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay. This is a little list I put together a couple months ago. Of course, a lot of this doesn't apply now, but I'm going to send this out to everybody.
Okay.
There are a lot of different options, and there are just some of them for writing offers in this market. Now, here's the thing. Got to keep an eye on the market because it's always changing. One of them is that I talked about the right to inspect and request repairs. And there's a GAR form for that. Now, if we use the right to inspect and request repairs, and this is if we need to be competitive, what you're doing is you are waiving your general right to terminate. Now, you've been reading the contract, right?
Yes.
What does my general right to terminate mean?
The general right to terminate, they're waiving the inspection clause, so they essentially are getting the house even if, or they can't back out the contract if something comes up in the inspection. That's my understanding of it.
I'm putting in the right to inspect.
Oh, you're putting in the right to inspect
Instead of the due diligence. So I still have the right to inspect and request repairs. It's specific. We're going to go over the form. When you general right to terminate means it's different than the right to inspect. They're two different things. The general right to terminate says I can cancel for any reason and no reason. And that's the exact language in the GAR contract.
You cancel for any reason and no reason.
Yes. Please make sure you read that paragraph in the GAR contract over and over again.
Okay.
Your right to terminate and your right to inspect are not the same thing. But the general right to terminate goes along with a due diligence period. So when you waive that due diligence period and you go with a right to inspect instead, you're still going to inspect, but now you no longer have the general right to terminate, which is the right to cancel for any reason or no reason.
Right.
I lose my job. I change my mind. As long as I do it within that time period, I can get my earnest money back. When I elect the right to inspect and request repairs instead of due diligence, I no longer have the general right to terminate.
Okay. For what time period?
Whatever time period we negotiate.
But if you did have the due diligence, then whatever time period you negotiated, you could just cancel for whatever reason.
That's right. And during this time period, I might read the HOA rules and find out I can't live with a rule. I can terminate as long as it's within that time period.
So with the right to inspect and request repairs, what does give you the right to terminate?
It's specific to that form,
Okay.
specific defects.
Okay.
Over there, but with the right to request, to inspect and request repairs, which with owner occupant you always want,
Mhm.
you can only terminate within the bounds of that document. You can only do it if there's repairs needed on specific items.
Okay. And so you just want to waive that general right to terminate just if it's a competitive market. That just makes you a little
Yes.
more appealing.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, on your purchase and sale agreement, there's also option 8. It's on the first page, 8B.2, option money. Let's say your buyer, you explain the general right to terminate them, and they say, geez, I don't know if I want to give that up. Because anything can happen.
Mhm.
Might need to back out. And if they don't have that, if their earnest money isn't protected by a contingency, they're going to lose it.
Okay. So if they don't have that general right, so if they don't have the general right to terminate, but they want to back out, they still can back out. They're just about to lose their earnest money.
Correct.
Okay.
And because we're in a competitive market, we're probably putting in more earnest money than usual.
Right. And you think they should probably put some earnest? Oh, well, they got to put earnest money regardless. That's different.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Because the earnest money is the seller's only recourse. So if the listing agent is really smart and sharp, they're not going to make sure their seller gets a big chunk of earnest money.
Yeah.
So, but let's say your buyer says, no, I think we need that general. I think I need the due diligence. You can buy the due diligence. You read that option on the contract.
Mhm.
It's option 8B2 on your purchase and sale. You can actually give them upfront, non-refundable money just so you can have that general right to terminate.
Okay.
Increased earnest money. Typically, it's 1%. Increase to about 2. Whatever your buyer's comfortable with.
Okay.
Keep in mind, when we're tweaking all those other terms, we want to make sure we keep in mind that we got a big chunk of earnest money.
Okay.
Another thing you can do right up front is, and a lot of sellers and listing agents are putting this right in the listing now. They're telling you the terms that the seller's looking for. Ask for that up front. Does your seller want a temporary occupancy after closing?
Okay.
Are they looking to close? So when you're going to write the offer, if the listing agent hasn't put in the listing the specific terms that the seller's looking for, shoot him a text and ask him, hey, are there any specific terms that are important to your seller? Find out what they are and incorporate them in your contract.
Okay.
Now, let's say there's a specific area that your seller buyer is interested in, and keep losing out in that area. Go to that neighborhood, send cards, letters, door knock to see if there are any sellers sitting on the fence. And you go to them, and I have letters and templates for that if you want to go that route.
Okay.
And you go to the sellers and you say, I got a qualified buyer wanting to get in. I said, have you been thinking about selling? Here's the advantage. I got the buyer ready. You don't have to have a gazillion people converging on your house and all that stress of multiple offers. You're only going to have to pay commission on one side, and this is a real well-qualified buyer. Can I show them your house? What do you think? You're going to need a couple things. You're going to need an agreement called an authorization to show. We'll go over this if you're going to go this route. You have to negotiate your commission with the seller up front, see if they'll pay. That's going to be tricky because remember, you knocked on their door, but it might be worth it to them.
Mm.
And you're going to talk to your buyer. Now, if your buyer is getting frustrated, you can say, look, here's another option. I can do this for you. But you might have to pay part of my commission if I go this route for you. Now I'm going to be doing a lot for you. I'm going to knock on people's doors and ask them to sell you their house.
Right.
And your buyer may be down with this. They may be, oh, you mean I don't have to beat back buyers to get the house? Sure, I'll pay you 2%. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So talk to your buyer about that. And say, listen, I'm going to try to get the seller to pay it, but if they don't want to come up with a full 3%, you know, are you willing to pay me something for that? For that effort. Pre-underwriting. Get your lender that will put the buyer through underwriting, eliminating the financing contingency. And make sure your lender understands, I want to eliminate the finance contingency. What can you do so that I don't have to have a financing contingency? Whatever it is you do, whatever you call it, pre-underwriting, blah, blah, blah. What, can you get my buyer to that point so I don't have to have a financing contingency?
Okay.
I would do that with all my buyers right now anyway. The appraisal clause. We don't have to give up. We can't give up that appraisal. Can't do it.
Nope.
So we're going to put a clause in. The buyer will pay X amount of dollars over the appraised value if the appraisal is less than the contract price, not to exceed the contract price. Put that in. That might not get you the offer right up front, but I bet it'll put you in second place.
Those are good for, the backup offers too.
Yeah, it'll put you in the running. Of course, what every seller likes, waive the appraisal contingency. The buyer will pay the gap in cash if it's a low appraisal. So, you know, your buyer has to understand what that means. And they will. And if they have the cash to do that, and it's not that big of a gap, but that's what that appraisal contingency means. House is priced at $275 and they offer $285 and they waive the appraisal contingency, they're paying $285, no matter where that appraisal lands.
Mm-hmm. And then the appraisal clause, you suggest 25 over if we're going to go that
They
way.
can afford, but I would say a minimum 2,500.
Okay.
They may not have to pay the whole thing because it may be right at the purchase price.
Mm-hmm.
That gives the seller a little something. The other option is new construction. If you're going to get them in new construction, you better move quick because things are changing in new construction. Prices are going up and some builders are starting to cut out the agents.
Oh, wow. I know I have one client that's wanting to get new construction towards probably around January.
Yeah.
So what?
Things might be different then. We can't even speak to January.
Is there anything I can do for them now as far as like getting them locked in with anybody, or I don't know how?
You might in another month or so, you can get them locked in. Steer them towards Lennar and forget I said that word steer because that's a bad word in real life.
Okay.
But Lennar and DR Horton are very reputable, very good builders. They're solid, big, giant corporations. They won't undercut agents.
You said Lennar. How are you saying that? Or how do you spell that?
Lennar, Lennar.
Okay.
And then the other thing is backup offer. So in all of the deals that you're going in, you're going to include that backup offer exhibit with your original offer and make sure to put in a due diligence if you're going in as a backup. If you're going in as a backup, you ask for minimum 3 days due diligence.
Okay.
Okay, because if the backup, here's how the backup offer goes. I'm gonna go over that with you real quick in a minute. The seller goes under contract. You said, please take a backup. Send that backup contingency with your original offer and they'll sign off on it with you right away. They sign your contract, even though they're under contract with somebody else. But now you have a binding contract contingent on that first offer falling through and then your offer moving in. And there are timelines on all that. So that's why you have to have that due diligence in there, because you're not going to just sit and wait. You're going to put the backup offer in and you're going to keep looking. So
Yeah, because you want to be able to pull out if you find a house that's in the
exactly, you
meantime.
need to be able, so if something happens and that backup goes primary, you need to be able to terminate for any reason or no reason.
Mhm.
And if the backup gets accepted, chances are you're going to get your terms. You're going to get your due diligence. You're going to get your appraisal contingency. Okay.
Mhm. So you want all of that in there with your backup.
Yep. I would think we can do it a couple different ways. You can put your primary offer in with the terms that work for your buyer. And maybe you can put a right to request repairs in there. And they say, yeah, we'll take a backup. And then you send the backup over with a due diligence period.
Okay.
Okay. You've got to have that. Okay. So I'll send you this little sheet of paper.
Okay.
And okay, let's go over real quick. The forms. Property sold with right to request repairs. This is it.
Hmm.
F273, as you can see, it's real easy to read. You're going to read through it a couple times. Make sure you understand what you're reading. Why isn't it letting me do highlighting? Okay, no. Well, that's strange.
Hmm.
I mean, I have the paid version. I'll just go through. So when you send it over with your offer, it's going to be part of the agreement with an offer date, your property address. These are the two time periods for your inspection. The first one is called your inspection period. And it's the same thing. Buyer shall have the right to request that seller repair and or replace defects of any in property identified by buyer's inspectors in a written report, right? So you're going to request repairs. So within, here's your first timeline. Within X number of days from binding agreement date, I would put 5. The buyer is going to provide seller with a signed written amendment to this agreement requesting the defects to be repaired and or replaced and a copy of all reports of inspectors describing them. That's your first timeline. If buyer doesn't present this amendment and report within this time period, they're waiving their right to do so. Now, once you've presented the report within the 5 days, then another clock starts, another timeline, and that's the defect resolution period. I would make this 8 days. So 8 days from binding, that is the time period that the buyer and the seller have to resolve those defects. You guys go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth about the repairs.
Hmm.
You reach a agreement. If neither party timely accepts the other party's last offer or counteroffer, or buyer does not elect to buy property as is, this agreement shall terminate. So you go back in that 8-day period. If you guys can't reach a conclusion and make an amendment and agree to repairs, as long as it's done before the end of the 8 days, your buyer can terminate and get their money back.
And that's 8 days from the beginning of
Binding agreement date.
okay.
And that 8 days is a negotiable term. So it's whatever you do here. I'd be a minimum of 5, minimum of 8. You can
Okay.
do. Okay. Now, number 3, if the inspector says we want some more tests, we need some further inspection, then the buyer can unilaterally extend the defect resolution period. Once by buyer. As long as they do that extension prior to the expiration of the original period to inspect, and you get up to 7 days.
Okay.
Okay. Now, number 4 is important. You can ask all you want. And buyers and buyers agents get upset when sellers say no. Sellers have the option to say no. Nothing herein requires the seller to replace or a product, an item in property if it can be repaired. So that at closing, it's reasonably fixed. A lot of times there might be something that's defective or broken and the buyer asks for a new one. And the seller says, no, I ain't getting a new one. That's a $300 fix. I'll fix it.
Right.
Yeah. So just letting you know that they don't have to replace it.
Okay.
It defines what inspectors are. This paragraph's important. It defines what defects are. The term defect shall mean, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you.
All right.
That you do have to understand is right here where it says defective product. Okay. A lot of if the existence of a particular defective product has been disclosed by seller to buyer in the seller's property disclosure prior to you contracting to purchase, then that defective product or any portion thereof, as the case may be, shall not be considered. And some of the defective products are poly blue piping, certain kind of drywall, certain kind of shingles. If it has a seller's property disclosure and tells you we have these shingles that have been determined to be defective by an industry, you can't ask the seller to replace them. You're buying the house with those defective shingles. That's not a defect, as long as it was disclosed.
Right, because you knew it before you wrote the contract.
Exactly. So, and that's it. See, it's one-page document.
Yeah, that's simple enough.
Yeah, so that should be easy for you to read over a couple of times and explain to your buyer.
Mm-hmm.
The other form, the backup agreement. This is, you are going to attach this as an exhibit, and it makes your contract contingent on you becoming the primary buyer. So when you fill this out, you're agreeing that this is a backup or a secondary agreement to the primary, which may be amended from time to time. The primary agreement with a binding agreement date of, and you'll have to get that information from the selling agent, and you'll have to get the buyer. Remember, this is primary buyer. That's who they're under contract with now. You have that name. This terminates. If they close the primary agreement, you terminate. Buyer has no right to examine or be advised of the terms of the primary agreement. Here's your deadline. If this agreement has not become primary by boom, then it's automatically terminated. So that protects your buyer as well. I like to send this over up front because I want to get that commitment right away.
And you just come up with that day. That's on me to come up with.
Yes, that's a negotiable term. I mean, if they are under contract and they're going to close in 30 days, then you'd like to be in there within 3 weeks.
Right.
Okay. And that's a fairly simple document to understand as well. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes. One more. So what would be the best way to service somebody that's just looking to rent?
Give them to somebody else. Try to get them qualified to buy. Part of your conversation should be, why they're renting instead of buying. Have you thought about buying? You know how high rents are right now? So that would be my first question. And if you're going to take on renters, you need to decide up front what area and what price point you're going to take on renters, because they may turn into buyers later and you're going to put them in your database and they may refer people to you who are looking to buy. But remember, you need to be blocking out time to prospect and generate more business. So you can't be driving around all over showing renters.
Because I don't get paid from, there's no way to get paid from that, huh?
Well, landlords offer something, but it's minuscule, and there's no way you should be spending your time for that little amount of money.
Yeah.
Please keep in mind that one of your first functions as a real estate business owner is generating new business. And you can't be working on that if you're driving around 3 hours showing somebody a rental to make $500.
Got it plugged up? Okay. Yeah, yeah, I got it.
Yeah. So just determine what area and what price point. And then have a conversation with them about, have you thought about buying? And would you like to speak to a lender? And get them with a lender that will work with them on their financing. And
Mhm.
they have to stay in a rental for a year until they're ready to buy.
And then, so the method that I'd go about finding rentals is, it's not MLS. How would I?
Yes.
It's
You can
MLS.
find, they'll be in the MLS and they'll be in the Georgia MLS. They'll be in both.
Okay. All right. Didn't know that.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Helpful?
Yeah, yeah, extremely helpful. And what you did on the CMA, that meeting is recorded, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll be able to look over it as well. But
Yes.
yeah, I feel a lot more confident with doing a CMA and trying to assess the value. You know, I trust
Yeah.
my opinion more after you
Yeah.
told me that,
Yeah.
what I had was good.
Yeah. Feel free to email it to me when you've done it and ask me, I'll take a look. Yeah, it's real helpful. Maybe that's something we'll work on in our lunch meeting. How are you doing with all your other goals? I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay.